All right, we're back on Inappropriate, Earl. We took a little break since I was in Montreal at the comedy festival. And, when I started this podcast about 2 years ago, I did it so I could interview people that I love, respect, and admire. And many of you know my love of the 80s, especially those action movies. Now, this man's more than just one movie. If you look up his name on IMDb, it's literally hundreds of credits. TV shows, The Fall Guy, for God's sake, Lee Majors and Doug Barr and Heather Thomas. And we're going to get into that. But I just feel that the first topic of discussion has to be one of the most iconic action movies ever with one of the most iconic bad guys ever. He didn't have a lot of lines in Roadhouse, which made his lines that much more effective. Now, I'm going to put him on the spot right now. I have not told him I'm going to do this. And before I introduce him, just know, special guest, I can edit anything out. But I would like to start off with your most iconic line by the fight scene at the lake when you get Patrick Swayze in a headlock. Now I'm going to say action, you say the line, and then we'll get into it. Sound, speed, rolling, Swayze in a headlock, action.
I used to guys like you in prison.
Please. I never thought I'd have this man on my couch. This might be the longest intro to any guest I've ever had. Mr. Marshall Teague, how are you?
I am honored to be here.
I telling you, everyone has said, Earl, how did you get him on the couch?
Well, Earl, it's very simple. I mean, you and I have been talking, over Twitter for, I don't know, close to a year.
Right.
Carrying on these great conversations. And, you just threw it out there, and it worked out that we were, back and forth and here at the same time and being here with you, another fighter, by the way. Yeah.
Hardly.
No. By the way, au contraire. You guys get on stage and you do battle. And I don't know that I could stand toe-to-toe with you on stage, doing some of the stuff that you and your fellow comedians do.
It is a form of combat. I will say that. I'm just going to get ready to take a picture so we have documented evidence here. But I could not do what you do. I mean, what is your martial arts background?
I hold a black belt in 4 forms: Taekwondo, Shorin-ryu, Kuksu, Aikido, and Judo.
And what got you into, I don't want to say mixed martial arts, but combat in the first place? Bullied as a kid?
I was bullied as a kid because all the kids in my neighborhood, in my time, used to pick on the small guy. They would sit there and they would stick your face in the dirt, and try to make you eat mud, stick leaves in your ear, kick your butt and that kind of stuff like that. And I had this great lady that I knew, most wonderful black lady. Her name was Ernestine. I just love her, just love her. And she came out one day out of a house, and I was being beat up. And she reached over, and I noticed that all of a sudden the extreme weight that was laid upon me started flying off. And she was pitching these guys like they were gnats. And she turned around, she looked at them, and she said, "Don't you lay a hand on my baby again." So I just took Ernestine's words and I said, well, they're not going to do it again. So I started studying.
And did you, I've seen some pictures with you and Chuck Norris.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, was Bruce Lee an influence?
Bruce Lee was an influence, but I had already been in the martial arts since I was 9 years old.
Right.
And so I studied, but, everybody knows of Bruce Lee. We all watch Bruce Lee. We wish we could bend in the directions that he could bend in. And of course, Chuck Norris, we go back decades. Decades. So we used to spar together and, at different tournaments, and Superfoot Wallace and Kid Joe Lewis we all came up during that place. So it was hard fighting. It's different now.
How is it different? What's the difference between like now with the advent of the UFC? I think there's maybe a surge in popularity of the arts, the different arts, karate, jiu-jitsu.
Well, you combine them. We all, that's why I say I studied different styles. Most martial artists will tell you that they studied different styles. They just didn't stick with one form.
Right.
If they said, okay, I'd like to learn this, I want to go pick up judo or jujitsu. Jiu-jitsu really wasn't as popular at the time, in the early days as judo. Obviously, right. Jiu-jitsu came in later. It was around, but it wasn't really as popular. But then you take the kids now that start out as collegiate wrestlers that are very good on the ground. They mix that in with their hand techniques, and then they learn how to kick, and then the advent of MMA, and voila.
Do you watch the UFC?
Oh yeah. My wife and I, we sit down there, we watch it all the time.
So when you have, and this is a little bit off topic, but there is a pro wrestler by the name of CM Punk who has his first UFC match coming up. He's basically got the shortcut because he's has a huge WWE following.
A wrestling background and following.
Right.
He has a huge following.
And a lot of people think that's unfair, but he's only practiced jiu-jitsu the last couple of years. You can't just learn MMA, can you? In a couple.
No. I mean, you hear of people getting into MMA and you see it. I mean, you watch some of the guys that are just coming up.
Right.
And they're out there trying to throw their best haymaker or their best kick. And they happen to have some guy that has a little more ground technique or a little better hands. And about 2 licks later, they realize that when they're waking up, that they don't know as much as they think they know.
Well, I think Mike Tyson said it best. Everyone has a game plan until they get hit in the face.
Exactly. There's, as the old saying goes, there's not a horse that can't be rode, and there's not a cowboy that can't be throwed.
Now, like you would think if you and I stood next to each other and just said to the, lay person, who do you think would win in a fight? Most people probably just on visual would go, well, the bigger guy. Do you find that, just on visual, but then not knowing your background? You could kick my ass, for the record, by the way. This is not some passive-aggressive challenge on my part.
No. Actually, I'm quite a man of peace. I really am.
I'm glad you are.
I only, as the saying goes, and I actually gave this line, pitched this line out because Patrick asked when we were doing the movie, what would you say? Be nice until it's time not to be nice.
Right.
And I believe that very strongly. I give everybody a break. I've had people challenge me after Roadhouse.
Oh, I can imagine.
I can't even tell you how many times people have come up and said, I think I can whip your ass. I said, I tell you what we'll do. Why don't I buy you a beer and I'll say you kicked my ass and we're good. And they would go, I like that.
Right.
So I'd buy them a beer, shake their hand, get to know them, hello, and goodbye.
Have you ever had a situation where it was time to not be nice? After Roadhouse, let's just say.
After Roadhouse. Yeah.
And I don't want to, can you tell the story just so the
I really don't like to get into that.
Okay, no worries.
But I can say this. It was over before it began.
Absolutely. Would you say fighting, let's say in that situation, I'm assuming we don't have to get into the details, but to get out of a situation like that, is it more mental, like reading the guy and judging where, like in the movie Roadhouse, Terry Funk was very, and I know it's a movie.
Dear friend.
I'm a huge fan of his.
Yeah,
but in the movie, he was, kind of a ask questions later, action first. Like,
well, you saw him; he was always amped up.
Right. It has. I think most people are in a bar fight or a nightclub situation. How do you de-escalate, other than the beer buying technique?
Well, that goes, back to the time, in the Navy and also as a cop, because as you know, I was a deputy sheriff. Also,
yes.
You learn to read people because either they've had too much to drink. They had a bad time with their girlfriend. They didn't like the way somebody was driving. somebody flipped them off or whatever, and they get out of the car, and all of a sudden you can see they're either shaking or they're breathing hard or they're staring at you or they're looking at you or they're hunched over or something. You learn to read people and you learn to give them space because I want them to commit first.
Right.
I want them to commit first because if I know they're going to commit, I want them to commit first because that gives me all the room in the world to do what comes naturally. But as a general rule, that I just nowadays, different time.
Absolutely.
I look at people and they come up and they say, you're that SOB that was in Roadhouse. And I go, yes, I was that SOB in Roadhouse. And how are you? How are you doing?
Right.
Are you with your wife? You with your girlfriend? How are you guys doing? You having a lovely evening? And I just take it away.
Well, because you were such an asshole in that movie.
And I appreciate that.
Obviously,
that means the world because that means I did my job.
I mean, I hated you watching that movie.
So did my mother.
Until those checks started coming in. When we're gonna get into your whole career, but every comic in the world is like, you got to ask these questions.
You ask away, man.
Because Roadhouse is a guilty pleasure to every comic, say past the age of 35. And
Bill Murray loves it.
Yeah, everyone loves it. I mean, it's just an iconic.
You ever made jokes on stage about Roadhouse?
I absolutely do, and I use you as one of my closing jokes.
I am honored.
I'm. It's a little tough to do the joke now because you're an intimidating guy. But the joke is essentially...
Am I really intimidating?
You are, because your niceness is almost, I feel, a beautiful mask for the deadliness that your body could unleash on me.
Never happened, my friend.
Here's it won't, because I will never put myself in a position to have you angry at me. Now, the joke essentially is iconic movie lines in the history of cinema. And I start off to the older people in the room. You might like Humphrey Bogart in Casablanca. Play it again, Sam. Or Clark Gable in Gone with the Wind. Frankly, Scarlett, I Don't Give a Damn. Stallone in Rocky. Yo, Adrian, I Did It. And I name a few.
Clint Eastwood. You feel lucky.
Right. Make My Day.
Make My Day.
Darth Vader in Star Wars. James Earl Jones. Luke, I Am Your Father. And then I say, there's a line at the end of Roadhouse where I don't use your name, but I say the good-looking man who didn't have many lines in the whole movie gets Swayze in a headlock and says, I used to fuck guys like you in prison. It kills every time.
It's an interesting thing. You talk about bad guys and characters that don't have many lines. Most of the really good actors that I know, and I will go back to one of the movie that we've all known, To Kill a Mockingbird.
Unbelievable.
You remember?
Mm-hmm.
Boo Riley, Robert Duvall, didn't say a word.
Right.
Not a word, but he stood out like nobody's business because when he was there and you looked at him, it was about what is going on in this man's head.
Right.
Every time. And he didn't have to say a word.
I mean, to me, silence is more intimidating than... you take some of the other actors in Roadhouse. There was that huge, I don't know his name, the huge tall guy who was part of...
He was 6'10".
Yeah, he was. And I don't know. Was
nicest person you ever met in your life.
Do you find it like the biggest, more intimidating guys actually in real life are the nicest guys?
Michael Clark Duncan, God rest his soul, that I did Armageddon with. Huge, huge man. One of the most gentle souls that you ever met in your life.
Right.
Called me one time where he was at a raceway. I'm here with my wife, by the way, Lindy.
Lindy, beautiful. You guys, listen, I mean this respectfully.
I got the best end of the deal, man.
You guys are a very good-looking couple. I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you. But I asked, Michael Clark Duncan, one time, did you ever play football? And he looked at me with that deep voice and says, no, my mama wouldn't let me. What do you say to a guy that has 21-inch arms?
Naturally.
He was just a big, strong human being and with this magnificent voice. and as gentle and as funny a person as you ever met. Always smiling.
Right.
Always smiling.
And the same thing with Terry Funk, right?
Same thing.
Guess,
Sweetest person. And his voice, interestingly enough, is actually very soft. He speaks like this all the time, and all, you know. But you know, when he gets into that ring, he's grabbing his hair, he's pitching around, he's doing all this wild, crazy stuff. You know, he did. But when you get him outside the ring, he's just a big, gentle giant.
And you are a giant as well. Because everyone, that was such a testosterone-fueled movie.
Oh, we went to a fight and the movie broke out.
Right. But the cast was so iconic. Kevin Tighe. Now, I was a big Emergency fan as a kid. So like,
I'm guilty as you are.
When I saw it, I'm like, where's Randolph Mantooth? Is he going to pop up in this? And he did not. No. Terry Funk. If you're a pro wrestling fan, it's just, he's, you know.
My wife is a big pro wrestling fan.
Oh, really? I grew up on it. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's here. Please share the mic if you'd like.
Oh, you're right.
Okay. And then Keith David.
Keith is, you know, why they didn't keep more of what he did, I have no idea. Because Keith, I've worked with Keith several times.
Right.
And he's, besides being a great actor, and that same voice he's got, he is just he's just a marvelous human being.
Oh, he was, you know, unfortunately, I was the host of the Rowdy Roddy Piper Memorial, and because I was the co-host on his podcast, and Keith David spoke at the memorial, and he just told the best They Live story. That it was just like, you know, when you see guys like Boss Rutan, and there was a couple UFC fighters in the room crying from this story. It's like, wow, some of the toughest guys.
You know, we were all touched by that because, I mean, Piper brought pro wrestling into the limelight.
Right.
I mean, he really did. You know,
yeah.
He really brought it out. He created a character, and he came out there and he brought pro wrestlers that, I mean, he was so audacious with his style that you couldn't help but just keep your eyes on it. And then he talked, and then he would scream, and he did all. He had a rap before rappers did.
You know? Right. I mean, he was, and this is in the 80s when, you know, there was no internet. So at least I thought pro wrestling was real. You know, like, as you can tell, I have the biography of the great and legendary Kamala. I really thought he was from Africa. No, that's how stupid I was.
Look, we were all. Don't you think we all sat there and thought the same thing? Seriously,
but I really believed it.
When a guy walks out with a mask and he's doing all that jumping around that he did.
Okay, Superfly Snuka.
Yes.
My favorite. So Superfly Snuka, Marshall knew pressure points. And
I bet.
When we first started dating, he you know, because I grew up on wrestling, so he thought, I'm gonna wrestle around, do pressure points. Next thing I know, okay, you're going to make me break it out. Superfly Snuka you. And we were fighting, and I gave him a black eye. I felt bad, but I gave him a black eye.
She did a beautiful leg flip, and I went right into the corner post on our bed at the time. Of course, I busted my lip, and I looked up. She was sitting there going, "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry." I said, "Are you kidding me? That's great."
Right.
That was terrific.
Well, I mean, pro wrestling is such a fan. Nowadays, it's a little. I'm not really a fan of it, but it's a little too scripted and choreographed, and
it's more talking than in the show, and the lights and the fireworks and all the other stuff. It's not like the old days where they came out there and did their thing. But
you had Ric Flair, Andre the Giant.
I mean, Ric Flair.
Well, Ric Flair, Andre. I met Andre one time.
How big was he? I mean, was he as big as advertised?
Huge. His ring. He took off his ring.
Right. Yes.
And he took off his ring. And he took a silver dollar. He took a silver dollar, held his ring up, and dropped a silver dollar through the ring. If that gives you any idea of how big his hands were, he dropped a silver dollar through his ring.
No, I mean, I can, and his alcohol intake was legendary.
Everybody was being carried out except him.
36 beers in a sitting, 2 full turkeys. I mean, his septic tank must have been an all-timer.
It's kind of like a sumo wrestler. They just eat and
Sleep.
sleep, and beat, push each other around, and they're great at it.
Well, any woman.
And they weigh 500 pounds.
At the least. Now, let's go. I've never heard you tell this story. Let's go through the casting process of Roadhouse. Now, by the time 1989 rolled around, I'm looking at your IMDb page right now. You probably had 30 to 40 credits. So you're a very established actor. Huge shows, the A-Team, MacGyver, for God's sakes. And we'll get into that in a second. The MacGyver reboot. Come on.
I don't know where to go with that.
Well, we'll go somewhere in a few minutes. But you get called in. And were they looking for what did they tell you they were looking for?
Here's the interesting thing about it. I was brought in by Barry Delaney, who was the wardrobe guy that I knew. He did fishing, and I went fishing with him, and we got to know each other. And I was brought in to actually train Mel Gibson for Lethal Weapon.
Did you?
They brought me in to spend some time with him to teach him what it was like to be a long gunner and a martial artist and that kind of stuff. And I worked with him for a couple of weeks just to give him a head, in the head where to go with this. And I gave him some insight on some scenes that they had written, but I said it wouldn't happen that way because he's a special forces guy, and that would not happen that way. And they said, well, you're going to get a role in this. Well, yes, I didn't.
What was the role in Lethal Weapon that you?
Lethal Weapon was just, it was going to be one of the guys he went up against.
The mercenaries.
One of the mercenaries, yeah. But surprisingly, didn't get it. But then Roadhouse came up. Well, Barry Delaney was on that one too, working with Joel Silver, and he said, and Scott, believe it or not, Scott Glenn was the original person they looking for to play Jimmy Reno.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, Scott, who's a marvelous actor.
Oh, but he doesn't have a martial arts background, does he?
He has studied Tai Chi, I think some martial arts.
Right.
I'm not really sure as to the extent. But Barry went in, and Scott turned it down. He said, it's not my forte. And Barry said, I have the guy for you. He is this guy for real. And they said, well, by all means, bring him in. I came in, I think Jackie Birch was the casting director, and I came in. I brought her a flower because I heard she liked flowers. I set it on her desk, and she says, okay, you're going into the room. I'm looking around for the sides, and there were none. And they said, you're going in to meet with Joel Silver and Rowdy Harrington, and this is your interview. So I walked in the door, and there's Joel sitting behind his desk on the phone as usual, and Rowdy was sitting over there, and he hung up the phone. He looked at me. He said, can you act? I said, I can. Can you fight? I said, I can kick the shit out of anybody. He said, do you like to fight? I said, I love to fight. He said, you're hired. You start on Tuesday. That was it.
Wow.
That was the interview, man.
And was that intimidating? I mean, Joel Silver is beyond legendary in this bit. I mean,
Yes.
the Warriors,
Well, because he knew of me before.
Right.
With the Lethal Weapon thing. I knew what I was talking about. So he pitched it to Rowdy. And just said, Rowdy said, can you follow orders? I said, I'm retired Navy. You tell me. I said, I'm retired Navy. I'm a former deputy sheriff. He looked at me and he said, that's good. And that was it. That was the interview.
Now, do you remember the first scene you shot for Roadhouse?
The first scene we shot, believe it or not, was, I think, the fight.
Really?
I think we started out with a fight. It was 2 weeks into the movie. I came on the set, and of course, I was Ben Gazzara's head henchman.
Right.
And I sat over and watched Ben for a couple of days, to see what he was like. And Ben Gazzara being a brilliant,
legendary actor.
Brilliant actor. I watched him for 2 days. Didn't introduce myself to him, by the way.
So did he know who you were?
He didn't even know I was there.
Right.
I just watched him. I stayed out of his eye line and everything. Watched him for 2 days. And he was old Hollywood. You'd hear him say, makeup, hair. Can I get somebody to get me some water here? And I just watched how he did, old Hollywood style. So when I went up to him, I walked up and I said, Mr. Gazzara, I'm Jimmy Reno. What are you doing sitting out in the sun? I want your chair over here. Why you're not drinking any water? Why don't you have any water? Can I get some water over here? I said, you need something, you come to me. You don't have to scream for anybody. You come to me. And subsequently, every day that he worked, I was called to set because when I was there, he was a peach.
Right.
He said, "Where's Jimmy?" I said, "I'm right here. I was always there."
Right. Not even where's Marshall.
That's why you would always pull me into scenes and things like that because that's the way it worked out. So we started the show on the river.
Oh wow.
And it was 5 nights, 5.5 hours a night. They started out with 8 cameras, went to 6. We did the fight 72 times, front to back, different. We did it in rounds, but the first night was front to back.
And how much of it was not improv, but was there who, I don't want to say choreographed, but.
Well, there was 2 brilliant people. First, you had Charlie Pacerni, who was the stunt coordinator, one of the best in the business. And then you had Benny Urquidez.
The Jet?
Jet was there. And he designed it in rounds. So we could do this in rounds. So we'd do a section of it. Then we'd move to what we call the next round.
Right.
And we'd go from there. And funny story, I got to tell you this.
Oh, please. The time is all yours.
Well, the first night, they said somebody had been telling Patrick, I call him Buddy. So if I say Buddy, it's Patrick. But they said, this guy you're fighting, he's a NATO heavyweight kickboxing champion, and he thinks he's fighting a ballet dancer. So just so you know, he might come in here and, just he's a tough guy.
Right.
Know that. So I didn't know any of this was going on. Then they came over to me. They said, Marshall, you may have to get him a little worked up so he'll get into it.
Right.
And that kind of stuff. So long story short.
No.
No, they roll camera first night. He goes in, he throws his kick, hits me about the solar plex. And I look at it, I look down at my solar plex and I looked at him and I said, that's it? That's all you got? They cut, of course. They roll camera again. He kicked me the second time and I grabbed his foot and I shoved him down on the ground. And I looked at him and I said, if that's the best kick you got, this fight is going to suck. Well, he turned about as red as the shorts you're wearing right now. He's wearing red shorts, by the way. And he looked up, never said a word. He got up and he said, roll the camera. Buddy said it. And I guess Rowdy hollered, action. He kicked me. He laid that powerful leg of his into me and he kicked me. And I skipped about 10 feet across the ground like a rock on water. He aired me out a little bit and I said, now that's a kick. Buddy comes over to me, reaches down with his hand because he was always a gentleman. And he helped me up and he said, you like this shit, don't you? I said, no, I love this shit. And Buddy said, what do you say we don't cheat the audience for once? Let's give him one. Just kind of leave the faces alone because we got to finish the movie, but
right.
Let's just rock and roll. And I said, you came to the right place. And from that point on, we did, and they were packing us in ice every night, spray painting Buddy because he had his shirt off because we were black and blue from head to toe. I mean, he cracked my eye socket. I broke 2 of his ribs with that log. That wasn't in the script, by the way. He had just kicked me like a freight train in the face, so I turned around and just busted a log across him.
And that was a real log?
That was a real log. And
what was, did Buddy say, hey, man?
No, not a word.
What's up with that?
No, he looked down at me. He said, we're even. That's all he said. We're even. And we got up and finished the fight. So all the licks, there was a lot of impact in that fight. You can probably tell that because it's different than other fights.
It's, I would say, the only fight scene that rivals it is probably one that you had something to do with Mel Gibson and Gary Busey at the end of Lethal Weapon, where not quite as good, I must say, but
it was there.
It was there.
It was there.
Now, after you hit Buddy with the log, you did your iconic line. Was that? I'm assuming that line wasn't in the script.
No, actually, Joel Silver asked me to come up with something that would really piss him off.
And that was...
He said, just improv one, come up with a line that would really piss him off and it would fit your character. So I just grabbed him, picked him up, and that's just the first thing that came out of my mouth.
Well, this is a audio only podcast, but we're going to just take a trip down memory lane here. We're watching. I tell you, it never gets old. Now, when you see that, what's your instant memory? What, by the way, for those of you wondering what the hell I'm doing, I have the sound off, and I'm playing that particular scene for Marshall and his lovely wife, and I could see a smile on your face.
Yeah, we had gone at it pretty good at that point. We were both, as you could see, that kick in the ribs.
Yes,
I kicked the crap out of him. You see that right there? I hit him there too. That I missed, but he played it perfectly. Now I want you to watch this next one where I come out and throw this kick. I want you to watch this. I think he calls me, "You're such an asshole."
he called you that a few times.
But this kick right here,
right?
Watch this kick. Boom!
Ooh.
Right there in the family jewels. That was a lick. That blood you're seeing over my eye.
Yes,
is real.
Oh, Jesus!
He cracked my eye socket, and that's why I busted his ribs.
So this was as real of a fight as you could get on a movie set.
Yes. That breathing, the tiredness, we were so worn out. And so those sweat, they didn't add sweat.
Right.
And this is a $500 throat rip. The stunt, I got kicked in the water. Water was 42 degrees. And everybody said, when you hit the water, you're going to be sucking air when you come up. And I said, not only will I not suck air, I will not move or do anything until they holler cut. I want you to watch that this goes on until he drags me down the river. I still have not moved or anything.
I mean, you guys really look physically exhausted.
We were absolutely wiped out. That breathing he's doing is for real, man. That we were both, and I'm holding my breath right now. So
you can't move an inch.
I can't move. Now you see this is back in the water. He's got no wetsuit on. He's got a shirt. That water's 42 degrees. And I'll show you where they hollered cut. I'm floating down the river. Of course, they're intercutting right now. But
Jesus,
about that time, they hollered cut.
And then you took
And
a
I
big
came
breath.
up and I said, "Pay me."
Now, how hard was it seeing that was the first scene you shot in the movie to then go, say, the next day or whenever for the second scene where you're alive, you know the ending, you know, there's the famous Stallone movie Nighthawks,
yeah,
where the first scene shot was Rutger Hauer's death at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
I imagine as an actor, that's kind of, is it hard to go from being dead to...
No, it's not, because once that happened, you knew exactly what your character was. I mean, after that kind of ferocity, you know your character.
Right.
You know what you don't like, and I don't like him. So it was very easy to stay in character. As a matter of fact, because of that, we did not speak at all before the first night of that fight.
So you never met him?
Oh, no, I'd met him years before. I knew who he was, but before we did this movie, we never would even utter the word good morning, hi, nothing. Not a word. We'd walk past each other, we'd look at each other, but not one word was said.
Would you say you were doing a bit of method acting?
We didn't want to know each other until that fight, because we knew we were going to know each other.
Right.
And after that fight was over, I can truthfully say, I went from a man I knew of and had met to a man that I loved dearly and probably one of the best friends that I've ever had in my life.
Right.
And I remember him dearly, and I think of him all the time. I mean, how can you not?
No, he was...
You share that kind of... We became best friends, just literally best friends. He would call me 3 o'clock in the morning from India.
Right.
Okay, hey, Marshall, what are you doing? Talking to you.
Right.
So we'd be on the phone for the next 3 hours. Of course, my wife would go back to sleep because she knew I wasn't going to be there. So we would talk for 3 hours on the phone. It's just the way it was.
Well,
but it was that way. Everybody on the movie, everybody that was involved in this film, we all became so close and so ingrained with each other's characters, but the melding together of a team,
right,
that rarely happens.
I mean, you could, just as a fan of the movie, you could tell that you guys were a family. And like, some action movies, like, I'm not trying to throw this guy under the bus, but I'll just mention the movie just, for the comparison there. I'm obsessed with the movie The Perfect Weapon with Jeff Speakman.
Okay.
But you could tell that, it was just a movie to these guys. It wasn't,
Well, Jeff, was a student, a top student of Ed Parker, and was very, very good at, that form. But as far as acting and getting into it, it was more about, and this is nothing against him because Jeff's good, he's a good guy, but it was all about his form and doing the moves.
Right.
And not about crawling inside the skin of a character. And you literally have to crawl into the skin of that character and become that character.
Right. I mean, and I wasn't saying anything bad about him.
No,
he could kick my ass too.
I say nothing bad about him. He's a brilliant tactician.
Right, but the movie, just as a fan, you might critique it differently because you're an actor, but just as a fan, it seemed a little stiff, wooden, I guess. I mean, I still watch it every time it's on, just because I'm a sucker for those types of movies. But like,
I watch it too.
Well,
the form is not. I like his form.
Oh, he's amazing.
Yes.
I was hoping for A Perfect Weapon too, and
never happened.
I'm not sure what happened. But there was a Roadhouse too.
Oh please.
But let's.
Oh please.
I mean, I have there's so many. I know time is limited for you. There's so many things on your.
I'm here with you, man, and I'm not leaving till you kick my butt out the door. So you tell me where do you want to go?
Well, that's not going to happen. I will politely ask you and your lovely wife to leave at your leisure. But I don't know why Hollywood does some of these sequels. You can never top the original Roadhouse. I'm not saying that because you're here. It's
one of a kind.
It just, you guys were family, and I'm sure because it made I mean, it was a cult.
Do you know that movie was actually made to fail? Did you ever hear that?
I could believe it, but why would they even make it if it was made to fail?
Well, I think the movie of the year that came out that year was on Golden Pond, if I'm not mistaken.
Right, with Henry Fonda.
Yes. Jane Fonda. But, the movie companies, they have movies that they want to make money because they know they've got something, and some they use because that are made. And this is just a rumor has it, so don't any networks take it personally. But they use the others as write-offs. If they don't make enough money, they use it as a write-off. And they thought this one would fail, so they didn't really advertise it a lot. They did a little. And they didn't advertise it a lot, but Buddy coming off Ghost, I believe, coming into this, and Dirty Dancing. I mean, I watch that all the time, but it came out, and it was word of mouth, and next thing you know, the theaters were packed.
Right.
And it just, it blew MGM UA away because they didn't think it would do what it did, and it's still doing it.
I mean, I've never heard a bad word about the movie. Like, even people who don't like action films like this movie, and girls like it. Mainly to probably look at you and Patrick. I mean, you guys are good-looking dudes. Are good-looking dudes.
I think we both were. Somebody told us we both were in the book of mullets.
Oh, your hairstyle was top-notch. And I forget the necklace you had on, but it was.
I still have it.
Do you really?
It's one of a kind. I have the last cross that's in my ear.
Yes.
And because Buddy ripped 12 of them out of my ear.
We're gonna get to a non-fight scene just so we can, see here. Now, here's a scene I want to talk. I mean, you still have that necklace?
I still have that necklace. It's the only one. It was made just for me. For the movie, because I wanted him to look, everything about him had to be it had to be, apex predator,
Right.
and everything about it is apex predator.
Oh, absolutely. And another fight scene in the movie that doesn't get quite the love, but it should, is your fight scene with Beyond a Legend.
Cool stick.
Sam Elliott. I mean,
I love Sam.
Just need to say his name and people go, okay.
Oh yeah, they either want to say Beach or Dodge or Ram or, or just anything that he's ever. If he speaks,
lifeguard.
Lifeguard. If he speaks, they want to know what he said.
Now, did you approach the fight scene with him differently because he didn't have a lot of martial arts fighting background, did he?
No. But what he was the top bouncer, cooler, whatever you want to call him. He's the one that wrote the book. I mean, he came up through all the motorcycle gangs and all that, and he literally, he had been down so many, tough roads,
right?
That he knew more. He knew what you were going to do before you were going to do it, supposedly, and he taught Dalton.
But in real life, like when you're Joel Silver or the stunt coordinator said, "Hey, you're going to have a fight scene with Sam Elliott," do you talk to him and go?
I already knew Sam.
So did he have a real life fighting background?
No, not really. I mean, I think he had told me one time that he had studied a little Tai Chi just for movement and things like that.
That's not enough to fight you.
No, but the thing about it is his hands. He's a
big guy.
He's a big guy, and when his hands came up, you could look at his knuckles and you'd say that this guy was ready to knock your block off.
And do you like in pro wrestling they say one of the two wrestlers in the ring is the ringleader. He'll give the calls of the in-ring action. Do you go up to Sam Elliott and say, "Hey, this is what I'd like to do"? Are you cool with that?
Well, with Sam actually said, told me, he said, "Marshall, I trust you explicitly. What do you want to do?"
Kick your ass.
I told him, I said, "I'm going to do this, 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 and this." And he said, "Okay, let's run through it a couple of times." And he said, "Go for it."
Because those leg kicks you gave him, those look like they actually hurt.
I touched him.
Now, when you say touched him, it's probably a different version than what I say.
No, I stopped my kick right on his pants.
And how hard is that to not
drive through?
Yeah.
It's you. If you look at the body, you set your body up to where when you get full extension, when you're at full extension. And I would shoot for 3 inches inside of his leg. So when I would come in and cross, I would snap it right there so he would get a toe, so he could feel it. He had to know that I touched him.
Right.
So he could react to it. But as far as hitting him, no. I would touch him, absolutely. Every time I hit him, I would throw it, and I would be there, and he was there.
Jesus, I'm glad you have self-control. Now,
my pool stick, think about that.
Right. That's we're just gonna now, guys. If you hear intermittent silence, it's just me and Marshall checking it out. Here we go. I think the pool scene is when you leapfrog over the fat guy. I don't want to say the fat guy.
No, well, I used him actually. He was kind enough to let me use him as a stopper because I actually did the vault with the pool stick.
Did you? So that was you?
Yeah.
Oh shit.
And now you can imagine. You look at this. These kicks and that stick is moving the whole time. And I told them in advance where I was going to be.
Right.
So they knew. Now, if you see it, Sam. See that? Boom. Wham. That stick's moving. I'm not slowing that stick down at all.
Now, when you hit the guy on the shoulder with the stick,
I tagged him.
Right.
That one, the cross, right? That was a lick. I threw that one.
Right. Yeah,
because the guy said throw it in on me right here.
Oh, Jesus. That looked like a real kick.
It is a real kick, and I definitely put him there.
This is almost a painful scene for me to watch because I love Sam Elliott.
If you watch the kicks. Now I want you to watch the kicks. Hip. That one. See how my foot came up his back? I put it up flat on his back. Now he actually laid one in on me. That one kind of touched him on the side of the head. I remember that.
Right.
See what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
Damn, I could watch this all day. I wish it was video, guys. I'm sorry for you guys listening, but how often do I get to watch the movie Roadhouse with someone who was actually in it? So this is a little selfish on my part, but let's talk life after Roadhouse.
Life after Roadhouse.
In terms of let's say the next year of auditions, was it hard to walk into an audition room and have people go, "That's the guy from Roadhouse"?
It happened, but also you've got to understand that some of the things you're coming in for another bad guy.
Right.
So they're saying, this is the guy from Roadhouse. He can definitely play a tough guy, right? Or they would say, what's your background? And you say, former deputy sheriff. This is what I did there. And they would say, well, the guy's a cop. So, okay.
Right.
No problem. Do you know how to rappel off the side of a building? Sure. No problem.
Do you?
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Now, Walker, Texas Ranger.
Decades.
Brings you back with Chuck Norris.
Yeah. And what a dear, dear man he is. What you see is what you get with Chuck.
Right.
And, again, there's two names. The world knows him as Chuck Norris. I know him as Carlos.
Wow.
Because that's what I call him. But for the audience, I will call him Chuck Norris because it's Chuck Norris. But we go back decades and, from Ring to the first episode of Walker to the very last episode of Walker.
Because I could see you playing a detective, a cop.
No, he wouldn't. No, that wasn't going to happen.
Do you?
No.
Is it because of Roadhouse people couldn't see you as a good guy?
No, it was. Well,
to a degree.
Yeah, to a degree. I mean, you do get a little pigeonholed, so to speak, but as far as Chuck was concerned, Chuck was Walker.
Right.
So when you go in there, when he called me up for the first episode, he said, "You're going to blow up 3 banks and we're going to have a fight. We're going to have a fight in a park in Fort Worth." I said, "Great. I love blowing things up." So we did. And it just happened to be the coldest day in Fort Worth that they had in, I think, 60 years. It was like 7 or something below zero. If you can believe that, in Fort Worth. And they were going to throw me into a fountain that had 3 inches of ice on it. So they had to break the ice.
Right.
And that scene wasn't written, by the way. They just decided to play a practical joke and see if I could stay underwater in ice water.
Oh, it's a lot of sense of humor.
Yeah. It's always, but that's what made it great.
Right.
It was always about having fun. So we would sit and we did it, but we fought and, and then it was another episode after that and another episode after that. And then there was an episode where it came in, it was written, guy comes at Walker with a samurai sword. He said, "Hold the phone." He said, "This is the guy that's playing the role because he's the only man that I would trust to come at me with the samurai." And it was a real sword. So we did this. And the funny thing about it, there was a stab scene and I overstabbed, didn't hit him, but it did go through the wall into the office, the adjoining office where people were working. This blade came through the wall, and didn't hurt anybody, but it was kind of like they were a little bit surprised to see this come through a wall. Of course, we had to fix it. And then, of course, then there was the table.
They knew it was Walker, so they loved it.
Right.
Everybody was excited. Everybody was excited. They all came out and where'd that come from? And the gentleman's office that we're using, he had this beautiful glass table next to a picture window, and we were going to supposedly just break some things on top of the table.
Right.
Well, I ended up going through his table.
Oh, Jesus.
Well, that was another repair job they had to pay for. So, but it was a good fight.
How many stitches have you gotten with all these hundreds?
I have never gotten a stitch.
Oh, you're like
bull crap. Yeah,
right.
I know. Yeah, it's bull. I don't know. You get nicks. I mean, you're going to get a nick here and there.
Yeah, but a nick to you is probably
I sewed my eye up later on. They sewed it up, and they did a great job. They brought a guy and did really good stitches, and then makeup went over the top. But we continued the fight.
Now, is Roadhouse any damage?
That's the scar right through the middle of the eyebrow.
Oh, wow.
That's that one.
What's your favorite? We're going to do this in 2 parts.
Okay.
Your favorite role before Roadhouse, and I don't even know what to. MacGyver. Do you have one that stands out for you? Tales. Let me see.
Ricky Dean Anderson. MacGyver.
Yes.
A hoot of a guy. I say it was perfect. It was fun because I was playing characters that were not unlike what I did for a living before I became an actor. So it was fun, and he was open enough to say, whatever he wants to do, let him do it, because he wants to do a slide line over the top of a train that's coming that we had to wait for, so I could do this slide over the top of the train. People didn't know it, but
right,
I did it anyway. So there's that. And then he got me to play hockey, and I don't skate. He said, no. If you're going to be on the show, you got to play hockey, because he had a league.
Yeah, right.
So they fit me in all this gear, and where you take me up to an ice rink, and I'm looking at this ice, and I'm going, I have not a clue. So I, like a little robot, walk out on the ice, and I ask him, I said, what are the rules? He said, make sure that those guys don't get that puck in this net. I said, that it? He said, that's it. Okay. So when we started playing, I saw the guy coming with the puck, and I didn't know anything else to do, so I did a body block on him and knocked him down. I didn't get the puck in there. And they said, okay, Marsh, we appreciate it, man. Thanks a lot. Okay, you did great for a first time. You kept him from getting the puck in, but you don't throw body blocks.
Well, yeah. Well, it's an effective measure of not letting the other team score. That's for sure.
He didn't score, but and I was glad he said, why don't you take a bench and just watch? And
right.
And I was thrilled to go do that. I waddled off the ice, and I did make one circle around the ice rink, though. I held onto the rail and
it's all good.
Went all the way around, and I said, "Okay, I've gone on a skating rink," and I got off immediately.
Now, have you played since?
No,
it was a one and done.
It's one and done.
Well,
one and done. He rappelled down a elevator shaft, no problem. Go across a train, no problem. And no, I'm not a stunt man. I don't put myself in that category, because those guys, the men and women that do stunts in this business are a different breed altogether, and the movie business wouldn't be what it is without them. So, I give them all the accolades. I've done a lot. I did about 26 years of my own stunts.
Because I would imagine even the tremendously skilled stunt men and women who are out there don't have your skill set of fighting and
and that a lot of times is why they wouldn't double me.
Right.
They would do, if I had to do if there was a super high fall, which I've done, but if there was a super high fall or some car stunts, obviously you want the guys that can put it on a dime.
Right.
Spin that car on a dime and put it right where you want it. And that's important. And I'm not going to profess to say that I'm that. Horseback riding, the horse, we did. Actually, that was a walker. We did this run in a canyon, and it was called White Cliff Canyon. And it looked like the surface of the moon, boulders, cracks, crevasses, the whole 9 yards. And Aaron Norris was directing it. And he was in a helicopter. And we had what were a dozen of us? There's a dozen of us bad guys up here. And he said, when I come over the top of this mesa, I'm going to drop at about 20 yards from you, fly sideways with the helicopter filming you, and you're going to ride these horses out of this canyon. Well, they gave me a horse that was absolutely outstanding, but he was the fastest horse, one of the fastest horses I've ever been on in my life, and I've been on a lot of them. But when we started rolling, the helicopter, you imagine, you're looking at your apartment, and it's a really nice apartment.
Oh, thanks.
And you think about it, the helicopter would be at the other end of your apartment, flying next to us on a horse that is wide open. And when I talk about crevasses, you're talking about a horse that runs 40, 45 miles an hour, and he's jumping crevasses as you're running.
Right.
No stuntmen. The stuntmen were riding the other horses. I was riding the lead horse, and nobody could even stay up with this horse.
Right.
He was so fast. And it was a 1/4 mile run.
And were you a little, not scared, but nervous?
No, actually, I wasn't really nervous.
You are a tough guy.
No, I trusted the horse. I knew he could handle it. So I just laid my hands on his neck and let him have it. The worst thing you can try to do is control a horse that knows what he's doing.
Right.
So you let him do what he does. So I just let him go.
Do you believe, they say with dogs, but especially with horses, they can smell fear? Do you think that you might have been bucked if he felt your nervous energy?
If I would have snatched his reins or gigged him,
right,
at the wrong point, it could have thrown him off. But only thing I would do is lay the reins. If I want him to move a little bit to the right or left, I would lay the reins over. He knew what to do.
Right.
And then I just let him have it.
Well,
we did a movie called.
You tell me the name and I'll get it.
It's the one about Rough Riders. Yeah.
What year?
John Milius. That was.
Oh my God, he's beyond a legend.
Way past a legend.
There's legends, and then there's like, for
the greatest storyteller I know.
I tried to get him on just because. For those of you who don't know who John Milius is, you're missing out on. He went to film school with Steven Spielberg, George Lucas. And they both said
the A-Team.
Yeah, that is, and we're gonna get into the A-Team in a second. But no offense to George Papard, but to have Spielberg and George Lucas say we thought John was the most talented. That's like
that's like it's stamped. That's a gold medal. That is a gold medal.
And Apocalypse Now.
There was one scene in there. There was another horse thing, by the way. They had set up, we're fighting the Spanish. Of course, they got cannons and explosions, and I am supposed to be riding back to tell Roosevelt, what's happening. So I got this horse. His name was Cowboy. And Cowboy understood English. He understood the word action and rolling. So when you said rolling, you could feel this horse gather. He would gather. You could feel his muscles tense. And so I told everybody, I said, whatever you do, speak in sign language, do not scream rolling. I said, they had all these charged explosions, and they were started out about, 12 feet apart, and there were like 18 explosions, and I was riding through the center of them. And I got down there one time, and one of the little, people, as a PA or something, made the mistake on the first take. He hollered, rolling, and Cowboy gathered, and I had him facing away from the explosions, and all I did was roll him over. I pulled him up and rolled him over and pointed him, and we went, and of course the explosions went off, and it was great. And then I did a slide stop right at the top where two goalpost explosions went off at the same time, and then rode down calmly to, Tom Berenger. Well, John Milius, being John Milius, said, they were kind of nice, but they were a little bit far apart. Bring them 5 feet apart. I want them separated only 5 feet. Marshall, can you put that horse through these explosions at 5 feet apart? I said, absolutely. So when he turned around the last time, and I knew I had to get him going, the guy did this, and I just leaned over to Cowboy, and I said, rolling. And he gathered slowly. And I said, action, and pulled him. And when he rolled back that time, he stood up and rolled completely around, and I let him go. And these explosions were going off at his head like this, all the way up through there. And the goalposts were brought into about 8 feet apart.
And and
the horse was perfect. The second I stopped him and checked him, I calmly rode him down and delivered my orders.
And how do you, like with explosions, how does the horse stay calm?
Believe it or not, they have an old trick. They take women's stockings, they cut the tips out of them, they put a little cotton in because it doesn't irritate their ears, so the explosions don't throw them off, and they lightly press it in their ears. That way it doesn't irritate them, and the material on the stockings don't bother them, so the sound is very muffled, so that it doesn't cause them to veer off left or right.
So even horses get the special treatment.
Absolutely.
Now, do you stay in touch with John? I mean, I know he's
We stay in touch as much as we can.
Right.
You know, it's not as often as we used to. I mean, we were around each other 2 or 3 times a week for years. I mean, for 25 years, we competed in different sports together. So we spent a lot of time around each other. And he was the greatest cigars and stories. John Huston stories, and all about the greats. And it was just, you sit there like I don't know how to. It's like the picture, the Rockwell pictures you see where the grandfather or the grandfather's telling these great stories to his kids, and they're all sitting there wide-eyed. Well, that's what we were all doing. It didn't matter what age you were. Right. We all sat there and did that. So it was terrific.
Well, I think my favorite story of his was, I think in '77, Spielberg and Lucas traded points with each other on their next releases. And of course, Lucas was Star Wars. Spielberg was, I think at that time, Close Encounters. And John's movie was Big Wednesday.
Big Wednesday.
Which, I'm not a surfer. It's literally one of my favorite movies of all time just because of the story.
Well, he had his own brand, don't you?
Right.
Bear.
Yeah. Bear surfboards. Played Bear in the movie. A lot of people don't know this actor, but Sam Melville, who was in The Rookies. But
Little Diamond Farnsworth.
Yeah, I mean, just and Jan Michael Vincent in his glory.
He was such a kid. He was such a young. You talk about an Adonis in the day.
I mean, I am as straight as you can get, but I can admit to another man's beauty. It's 1978. I guess it came out. Jan Michael Vincent was like
a stunning, handsome man.
That's how I wish I looked. And then William Catt, and of course Gary Busey, and
William, was in Rough Riders too.
Oh, was he?
William Catt was in there. Yeah.
And Gary as well.
Gary Busey was in there.
So it's kind of a big Wednesday reunion of sorts.
That's what it was. I mean, the only thing we didn't do is surf the horses.
Well, I'm sure.
Get him to stand on the boards.
Well, Gary probably thought he was serving the horses at one point.
Well, there were points.
Right. But we love Gary Busey here.
Love him.
So, I mean, you've worked with just some iconic. I guess my next question for you.
Blessed, man.
I mean, this business is tough. Hollywood.
I've worked with, I think, 18 Academy Award-winning actors and actresses, and they were all. Every single one of them were first rate.
I mean,
Jack Warden, my first role.
Oh, wow.
My first role.
Let's get to your first role. Now, here it says Topper.
That's it.
Man at Disco.
Man at Disco. I was wearing the nylon shirt, opened up the whole 9 yards. Great story with him. I was scared to death, because my first role, they said, your first speaking role will be with Jack Warden. I go, Jack Warden? You're talking about Academy Award winning Jack Warden? Yes. I'm sitting over there, and I got a few lines, and I'm sitting there trying to do this. And Jack, here's one of the great stories about brilliant actors. Jack looked over, and he came over to me, and he looked at me, and he knew I was playing the character because I was this big guy he was supposed to bump into, and, hey, watch out. He comes over to me, puts his hand on my shoulder, and said, "You nervous, kid?" I said, well, yeah, a little bit. I want to do a good job. He said, you smoke cigars? I said, well, yes, as a matter of fact, I do. He said, you drink beer? I said, I have been known to partake. He said, come on, let's go over here and sit down. We sat down. He pops the top on 2 beers, hands me a cigar. We're sitting there puffing along. He's telling a few stories about acting stories and things like that. And all of a sudden, we puts it down. He said, let's run the lines. Jack Warden, look at me. Let's run the lines. We run the lines. He said, I'm going to give you a bump right about here. And like this, and he does that, and he says, stand up, bump me like this. I'll give you a bump, or I'll stumble into you, whatever. He said, we ran the lines. He said, you got this. Let's go knock this shit out. Let's roll this camera. We get up, we go, we do the scene. That's a gentleman.
Right.
That was my first lesson from a master.
And then?
Be courteous to others.
Which in this business is not sometimes not the case.
I've tried to do that my whole acting career.
Well, just you being here shows you, listen, you won't hurt my feelings, but I'm assuming you'd never heard of me before.
We've been talking. I know you on Twitter.
But you must get some weird requests on Twitter, I'm assuming.
They're different, some of them.
I mean, I tried to approach you in a respectful way.
And you were. Absolutely couldn't have been better. And that's why
you're here.
That's why I'm here.
Okay, well, without getting into details, what are some of the more unusual DMs that you get on Twitter? Just guys trying to fight. Hey, you want to fight or stuff like that?
I have never gotten one.
Well, let me send you one right now.
I've had people. Well, go ahead and send
No, I'm good. I'm good.
No, I've had people call me and ask me about, say, for instance, a guy in Germany wrote me a letter that said, what would you suggest? My son is over here he was in the military. And he said, what would you suggest if I wanted to get my son into martial arts? I said, I would start him with a basic mother form, whether it be Taekwondo or something like that. And then I would take him to a grappling. I says, because if you're looking for something as to him being able to understand a large variety of what's out there for him to do, they said, take him to a judo class, take him to a jiu-jitsu class. And the kid is still there, still practicing. I think he's coming up for his brown belt.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, we've got those requests, and we've got people from Ireland, Denmark, right? And people write in with request or what do you think about this? Or I was confronted and I handled it this way. What do you think?
Well, I don't fight, so.
Well, and they didn't want to. And if you don't have to, don't.
Right. I mean, I subscribe to the Bruce Lee philosophy of the art of fighting is not to fight.
Not to fight.
Because I have no reflexes, to be completely honest with you. My last fight, I got choked out.
Well, I wouldn't say you don't have reflexes.
Oh, I would.
You've got to be pretty fast on the stage. Come on. I mean, you guys.
Mental reflexes I have.
That's what I said. Mentally, well, that's it. You just hit the nail on the head. It's all mental.
Right.
The physical part is the aftermath of whatever you've done in your brain. If your brain's working.
Well,
there's some people their brain doesn't work, obviously.
You might be sitting next to one.
No, you guys just can't do that on stage and that brain not be working at 100 miles an hour. It just doesn't happen.
Well, I'm very good at getting out of heckling situations. I mean, a comic.
And you get it.
Oh, I do, because of my slow speech and.
Don't you think that's a challenge?
Well, it is, because Marshall, I've never had a drug or drink in my life. I've never even had a beer. So, but because of my character, if you will, people think I'm a stoner, or every time I'm at a party, someone will ask me if I have cocaine on me. It's because of my, I guess, character. But I'm just,
play it.
Well, I do.
Play it.
That goes back to who do you think would win between the two of you standing up against one another with silver hair and with dark hair and being a taller man?
He would kill me.
No.
Yes.
Think about it.
You can't judge a book by its cover.
Yeah.
People would look at me and they'd say, he's got silver hair.
Yeah.
What can he do?
Yeah.
What can he do? And they would look at you. You're much younger.
No, not much.
No. You believe it or not. But it just one of those things. People would look and perceive. He's got silver hair. He can't do anything.
And if I were to grab your shirt right now, which I will not, but I'm just saying, I'm not going to touch you.
Go ahead.
No, I'm not going to touch you.
Even if you came up and just grabbed
Right.
Kind of do it.
Like this?
What's the first move you do?
What you do?
Here. Now,
That's slow.
that's in that's Earl reflex mode. Right, you could kill me, which is why I never mouth off to anyone at a comedy show. If someone wants to, not that too many people want to fight me, but you get a guy who's drunk or fueled on.
Did you see what I?
Yes.
First thing I did, I locked her hands, so she has no hands. Next thing I do, the move was to go up and take the opponent's head off.
And or deflect.
Or deflect it or move it or throw them, whatever, grab their hair, pitch them backwards, take them down, put a knee in their throat, whatever.
Where's the best place to hit someone? I've heard the nose.
Well, the nose is an object, if you think about it, roughly is 1.25 inches wide to inch and a quarter, 1 3/4 inches high. Now, if a person's moving their head, that's a moving target. Well, guess what's not moving? Your throat.
Right.
Throat stays stationary because your head pivots on it.
What about the balls?
Balls is something that if you can, it's very effective. But if a person's standing sideways and you can't get there, what do?
Right.
Grab their hair.
Okay.
Take their head. Because once you turn a person's head to either side, 65% of their body motion is out of play.
Right. Now, I think Buddy, Patrick Swayze, for those of you who just tuned in, he said in Roadhouse, might not get it exactly correct, but he said something to the effect of, you chop a big guy's knees out.
Chop the tree.
Right. Is that true? Like if you're, not you, but if you're fighting a much bigger person, best play, get the knees.
I'm going right for the knees.
Like maybe a side kick to tear their ACL or something along those lines.
That or break it backwards like a chicken leg, and then they don't get up.
There's that too.
But you can actually, like I said, if you threw a kick right on top of on top of the quad. If you sit there and put your shin bone, which is very sharp, people don't understand, it's very, very, it's a bone, and you hit somebody on top of that quadricep, and you kick it like you're full force, and you could lay it across there. You'd be surprised at how unbelievably painful that is.
Well, no, I take your word for it.
Well, I mean, it's just, we're discussing that. It's little things, but I always tell people, again, the best thing to do is don't get in a fight.
Right. Just talk your way out of it.
Just say, have a nice day. Did I offend you?
Let me buy you a beer.
Let me buy you a beer.
Because I can imagine for the rest of your life, because you're still very recognizable to me as Jimmy.
Thank you.
You haven't aged. The hair may be wider, but the face is still looking good.
Thank you.
And I know we have a few minutes left. There's a lot of struggling actors out there, actresses, actors. What is your best advice if they're just starting out? Like I said, please go on IMDb, look at Marshall's page. This is, what kills me about this business is acting coaches, acting teachers who've never accomplished anything, stealing money from young actors, actresses.
It happens every day.
How to make it in Hollywood. It was like, what roles have you done, dude or miss? You've done it for 30 years and 40 years. Sorry. What would be your... See, I would take an acting or a How to Make It in Hollywood class from you because you've made it and sustained it. What's one bit of advice you'd give to...
Start out by believing in yourself.
Because if you don't, who will?
Nobody out here is going to believe in you. You've got to first believe in yourself. You've got to believe that there is something very unique about yourself that you believe needs to be on film. Second of all, understand that no one can teach you how to act, period.
It's either in you or it's not.
A good acting coach brings out what is unique in you. That's a good acting coach. And it's one that doesn't sit there and brag about how good he is. It's one that sits there and looks at you and watches you and is not afraid to tell you, go there.
Right.
Go there. You can go there. And that's the biggest thing. People being afraid to go there in themselves because there's still that angst of, can I do it? Believe, first of all, that you can. And make sure that that's exactly what you want to do. Because if you're coming out here with, and I hear this all the time from young people, they're gorgeous. Gorgeous people in this town, there's 1,000 come here a day. Great looking people.
Men and women.
Absolutely. They come here every day and they're under the belief that I can walk in here and because I can cry on cue, that'll get me a role. And it might get you a role, but the old saying is, it's not who, it is who you know, but it's also what you know.
Right.
Because once you get up there and if you blow it continuously, they don't care who you know after that, because they also know that you don't know anything. So you get out there and believe in yourself, don't be afraid to walk around and watch, and listen and look at other people's classes, because you'll know when the coach is really there for you. You'll know.
Right.
And you'll know because they're not all the way always up there bloviating. I love to use that word, bloviating.
Well, it's a little too deep for my fan base.
Yeah, it's a little deep for me, but I just heard it, so I thought I would use it about how great they are.
Right.
And I've written 12 books. I don't care. But when a person can reach inside your soul and find that uniqueness and show you the map to how to get there, once he opens that door, it's like, voila. Then it's up to you to have the staying power.
Right. Talent. I say talent doesn't get you in the door. It keeps you in the door.
Keeps you in the door.
Because
once you get the job, it better be what you know.
Right. Absolutely. Because you could see that a lot with, say, 80s action stars. There was, the Stallones, the Schwarzeneggers, the Van Dammes, and then there was I won't mention names, but there was a second wave. Some were good, some weren't.
Yeah. Well, I'm a character actor, and I like being a character actor.
Yeah. Well, that's another thing, and it's a title I don't like calling anyone, because to me, you can't make a movie without character actors.
No, you gotta have them.
Roadhouse would have been a good movie with just, say, Patrick Swayze coming off of Ghost and Dirty Dancing and The Outsiders, and of course I'm a hockey guy, so what was the hockey movie? Youngblood. One of the great hockey movies. Aren't good for box office, but
But you love watching them.
Well, I do, but I think it might have been also the problem with a Big Wednesday. Surf movies and hockey movies are it's such a
genre driven. I mean, you either like it or you don't.
And I get so sad when I tell people about Big Wednesday, and they're like, "What's that?" And I'm like,
God.
It is like the Star Wars of surf movies.
Yes, it is.
And because it was based on John's life growing up in Malibu.
Yeah.
And it bums me out.
He brought everybody together that loved to surf.
Right. Another character actor by the name of Reb Brown, who
know Reb very well. Great guy.
Right. He's just also in, he falls into line with that. When they tried to make Lou Ferrigno, he was in that movie Cage.
Mm-hmm.
And Cage 2, there was a sequel. I don't know if that was necessary, but I mean,
it was there.
It was there. With those, I don't know if Ferrigno was. I'm sure he's an amazing guy.
He is.
The Incredible Hulk.
He truly is.
Not the original Incredible Hulk, by the way. Do you know who? We're going to play a little.
No, actually, I heard that, and I do not know who played the original Incredible Hulk. Was it?
I do.
Well, by all means, enlighten me.
Well, I don't know if I'm enlightening you, but I have a Rain Man-like ability of useless information, Marshall. And
it's about to become pertinent, so lay it on.
The original Incredible Hulk, he was in the. I'm going to give you some hints. He was in The Longest Yard with Burt Reynolds. He was the amazing bad guy in 2 James Bond movies. Jaws.
Keel.
Yes.
Richard Keel.
Richard Keel was, I think he filmed either I don't know if it was the full pilot of The Incredible Hulk, but it was at least a few scenes, and they found him to be not muscular enough. And they felt they decided they needed a more bodybuilder-like
Hulk, because the Hulk he turned into biological weapon.
Right. So Richard Keel. And Richard Keel had an amazing career.
What a sweet guy, too.
Yeah.
I met him many times over the years.
I mean, just along.
I looked up at him and, I did not say the usual, how's the weather up there?
Right.
No, I didn't pull that. I just said, pleasure to meet you.
I imagine that wouldn't have gone over well with him.
No.
But his role as Jaws, and I believe The Spy Who Loved Me and Moonraker was very.
No, it's 3, wasn't it?
He was only in 2.
I thought he was in 3.
Believe me, if he was, I would have known.
You would have known. Yeah, okay.
And he had a speaking line at the. He only had. Here's a little.
What was he? Bit the shark and.
No, he had one line in both James Bond movies, and it was at the end of Moonraker when. With The Spy Who Loved Me, he was a little bit more of it was a serious bad guy role. But with Moonraker, I think they decided to do a little more cartoonish, and he fell in love with a girl on the
the
spaceship.
Station. Yeah.
And
She was Russian. I think she was Russian.
She was blonde with pigtails and big.
Yeah, but you got it.
Bosomy, I guess. Trying to be respectful. And he grabbed her hand at the end as the spaceship is blowing up and says, "Here's to us, baby." And they had a little toast of wine. I bet you never thought today when you woke up you'd be going over Richard Keel's line at the end of Moonraker.
But I'm a Bond fan. Lindy's not necessarily a Bond fan, but I am. I watch Bonds.
See, I grew up
because I work with Sean Connery, and to me, he is Bond.
See, here's where we might have a problem.
Go for it.
But no physical problem. I'm much more of a Roger Moore guy.
Really?
But Sean Connery's...
I mean, he is debonair. I mean, he is definitely debonair and suave and charming and
well, so Sean Connery. I mean...
without question.
I even like Timothy Dalton in the two he did. A lot of people don't.
Mixed emotions.
I thought that he was almost, this is going to come out like a backhanded compliment. I thought he was almost too good of an actor to play James Bond. Like, he was too serious. Like Roger Moore, I think.
He had fun with it.
Right. Sean Connery, a little more serious than Roger. Roger, like I know him. Would you agree with that assessment?
Yes. The only reason I go back to Sean Connery is because when we were doing The Rock,
an amazing movie.
Yes, it's an amazing movie.
And a cast. I talked about the Roadhouse cast.
Yeah, another great group of people.
Ed Harris, Tony Todd.
Just keep going. The list is on and on and on. Well, Lindy and I were in San Francisco, and we were going down, and Sean was shooting a scene where he sees his daughter. Remember when he
in the little park.
Yeah, we're walking down the hill, and of course, Lindy sees Sir Sean, and she goes, "There he is." So we walked down to the set. Because I'd been his safety diver the whole time, taking care of him in the water. I walked up and he met her, introduced, and he couldn't have been more charming. And it spent some time. And then later we had a little rap party. We had a rap party. I think it was up there, wasn't it? And he comes in the room, and nobody's, everybody's doing whatever they do, but he has Lindy says this better than I do. I wish you would come over here and say it, but
please come over here.
I wish you would.
Just speak a little more into the mic, but we're good.
I'm just going to hand it.
You can be in a full room. Your back's to the door. Sean Connery walks in, and you feel that energy, and you just automatically turn, and there he is, and his aura is just it's Bond.
Right.
It just oozes classic Hollywood. It oozes the action man. I mean, he's it. He really is.
And if I may,
please. He
walks over where he's meeting people. He comes over to Marshall. It's good to see you. How are you? Who is this? This is my. I think we were dating at the time. This is my fiance Lindy. Charming. She's absolutely stunning. May I have this dance? Marshall, do you mind? And I'm sitting there. I said, by all means, please. He says, thank you. He walked back. She says, lovely. So I'm sitting there going, cool.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you say? I said, he just came over and just danced with my fiance and said, she is stunning.
And I must say, she is the best looking couple in Hollywood, probably.
I don't know about that. I love her, though. She's the best part of my life.
How long have you guys been, I guess, married, but like... Together?
22 years.
And how, without getting into anything too personal, how do you guys make... I've seen marriages fall apart in the world of stand-up in 2 years. To be in Hollywood, what's the secret?
We're just comfortable in our own skin. I come from a modeling background with the acting. We both traveled. We both experienced a lot of life, and we're comfortable with one another. So you understand the business, and we just work things out. We're partners in life.
She actually told me, she said before, later on, she told me, she said, I made up my mind. And she actually made this statement to some friends. She says, these are my absolute will not marry people. I will not marry an actor. I will not marry a cop, and I will not marry a military person. Well, guess what she got?
All three.
All three at the same time.
Now, did you ever have that list for you? Like, I won't marry a model because, or did you have a do not?
I had a do not get married.
Right.
Period.
Just because.
No, I mean, when a friend of mine found out that we were, we were going to get married, he came out with his Purple Heart he got from Nam, and he handed it to her and said, if you're going to marry this son of a buck, you deserve this a lot more than me. So that's where that went. But we've been, I mean, do we have our differences? Yeah. Who doesn't? But as far as, can I imagine being with anybody else? No, I can't.
Well, that's amazing. That's true love.
That's what it is.
And, I don't want to end the podcast, but I know that your time is valuable. I'm just looking at this cast of The Rock. It's like
it's off the charts.
William Forsythe, Michael Biehn, David Morse, who's one of my favorite
David's great.
character actors.
Great.
He made me cry the other night.
What show are you watching?
I'm a big Pittsburgh Steeler fan. This podcast is not about me, but my dad was friends with the owner.
I want to know.
Well, my dad was friends with the original owner, Art Rooney, and they did that movie. It's not about the 70s Steelers per se, but the Will Smith movie Concussion.
Concussion, yeah.
And they had David Morris playing Mike Webster, who, do you know who Mike Webster was? Legendary center of the Steelers. And, toward the end of his life, he was living in his car. He would taser himself to wake up, self-mutilate. And David Morris... I mean, I know the role wasn't that big, but he could have won. If they gave like mini Oscars out for
he would have gotten
smaller roles, it's like you got the feeling you were looking at Mike Webster.
Well, he crawls in the skin of every character he plays.
Yeah, he's
just one of those brilliant actors that just does that.
He made me cry also at the end of The Negotiator when they shoot Samuel Jackson. But that's another. I mean, that's when you can make me cry. I mean, I don't cry at many movies. Maybe at the end of Brian's Song. When they show Billy D. Williams and James Caan running through it's like, and they start that music.
Look, man, I'm a notorious blubber person. I mean, if I feel it, I let it go.
Right.
Years ago I wouldn't have, but I'm just that way. I mean, I watch the Olympics and they get the gold medal. I cry.
Right. What's your favorite Olympic sport to watch?
Well, I've been watching the gymnastics, which was...
They are unbelievable.
I watched those young ladies get out there and kick ass, take names, and they didn't bring a pencil. I mean, they came to play, and they did everything. And
he's like,
well, I mean, what do you say about you are talking about Aquaman, the Submariner. He is all of these things mixed into one man, and he is... I don't think anyone will ever surpass what he has accomplished.
20 gold medals. I thought Mark Spitz was like, I'm a little older, so people are probably like, who's Mark Spitz? What room does he book? I thought, well, that's impressive. 9. I think he was 7 or 9. It's like, wow, he makes Mark Spitz look like a Rex.
He doubles.
Yeah.
Double down.
Yeah, the double deuce.
Triple down, double deuce. Whatever, all those things. But, watching him swim and then come back 30 minutes later and touch off at second, and, to watch what he can do, it just blows me away. I mean, watching all of these athletes. I mean, I was sitting there right before we came here and I was watching the hammer throw or the shot put. And I was sitting there going, I would not piss one of those ladies off for anything in this world. When I saw her throw this 12-pound shot or 10-pound shot, she threw it 47 feet. And I'm sitting there going, yes, ma'am, whatever you would like, ma'am.
Yeah.
And I'll go get it for you.
Their legs. I work out every day and I wow, how come I don't look like that? I mean, they're these 15-year-old girls with
amazing.
Marshall.
USA.
I can't thank you enough.
Earl, a pleasure, man.
Please.
I was saying, we have a film festival.
Right. I was going to say.
Road to the Well.
A movie I did, and it's called Road to the Well, and it's coming out at the Long Beach Film Festival, and it's on September 2nd.
And can people buy a Road to the Well? You played Dale. I'm pulling up. Let me see.
Retired Army chaplain, and I am the key to the Road to the Well.
And who else is in that?
Lawrence Bowler.
And Micah. I can't remember Micah's last name, but it might be. But just a young director, John Savak, who wrote this, and it just really, I mean, it's very dark. I'll tell you that right now.
Well, I like that.
Very dark. But it's just, I enjoyed that more than anything. And like I said, if people want to touch base, you talk about touching base, they can follow me on Marshall R, middle initial R, Teague, on Facebook, Twitter, and just drop us a line.
And are you on Instagram or do you do that?
Nah,
you should.
I'm not that good yet.
The young kids.
I'm working on it, man. I'm working on it.
And then we'll get you into Snapchat later. And where can we find you on? Do you? No,
I don't. I don't.
Well, I imagine for a beautiful woman, I could understand why you're not. Because there's so many creeps.
Well, actually, we get a lot for both of us because they've seen pictures of Lindy and I, and they ask, and we reply together.
Right.
So we reply together, So it's that kind of a thing, and it's nice.
Like you said, there were just some weird instances.
Well, because you're a model, I mean, incredibly beautiful. I think guys just are. This podcast is called Inappropriate, Earl, but. You have not been inappropriate at all. Well, listen,
I think it's a misnomer. It's been an amazing conversation. I mean, I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed sitting down here and just talking.
I love your name. So we've just been saying your name. I mean,
well, Skakel is a weird name.
It's a good name.
I'm going to tell you one of my closest friends in the house. And I don't mean this, don't take this the wrong way.
Listen, even if I did take it the wrong way, I wouldn't tell you about it.
I talk to him a lot. I have one of those anatomically correct punching bags.
Yes.
And you've seen them.
Yeah.
Century. And they say they call him Bob. I just said, I'm not calling you Bob. You're Earl to me. So when we're in the gym, we have our gym and we're in there working out, I'll go lean on his shoulder and I'll start talking to Earl. So Earl, what do you think? She doing it right? So I carry on this conversation with Earl and it's great. I'll choke him out, but that's okay.
Well, I think I once had an actor on here.
Earl's an endearing name.
It means noble. I
totally agree.
And I want to end this podcast on a happy note. I took a shot once. I had Eric Bischoff on, and Eric Bischoff is a very heavily involved in the world of pro wrestling. He's best friends with Hulk Hogan, and it was like a 2.5 hour podcast. He answered every dumb question a wrestling fan could come up with, and I was feeling so good. I took a shot, knowing his best friend was Hulk Hogan, and Hulk got into an audio tape was released where he might have said some language that wasn't the best. And so I pitched Eric Bischoff this idea of how to rehabilitate Hulk Hogan's name by having a battle royal where Hulk Hogan comes back and he wrestles every black roster on the WWE. And I went from taking this man, being so respectful to him, 2.5 hours, and his face just went blank. He's like, and then what? I'm like, I don't know, Mr. Bischoff. That's all I come up with. I'm going to take a shot with you on this.
Take a shot.
You don't have to do this.
Take a shot.
I would love it if you could take a picture of us. You putting me in a headlock. No, you don't have to do this. You do not have to do this. And
as long as it is known first and foremost that I will put you in a headlock or chokehold, whichever you prefer.
But it's not just putting me in a headlock. And we're going to say your movie line.
Oh.
It's very hard because I'll be honest with you. I rarely say the word because I just understand that.
How about this? We switch the word.
Screw.
I used to do guys like you in prison.
Oh, cool.
And I'm sorry I did that up front.
You know what?
I can take it out if you would like.
I would appreciate it if you would.
I would.
I would appreciate it if you would because I'm really trying to be respectful to people out there and kids and things like that. And I like to leave them with a good note.
And I'm very sorry I pulled that on you.
It's okay. Look, you did it. I had pre-warning. You were very upfront about it, and I don't mind saying it. But because you said upfront, I can edit this accordingly,
Absolutely.
and I take that truthfully and honestly. I would appreciate it.
So this is how it will be done.
And I will definitely do that.
And I would love to, because this will be the publicity picture that we're going to use. So should we get up?
Absolutely. You can't do it sitting down.
No, you're right. And please don't
I want you to hold the mic.
Oh, I am. I'm going to hold the mic. I'm just going to mic.
What side would you like this taken from?
Oh, sure. That would be great. Hold on, guys. We're just setting this up. I mean, this is a fantasy of. Let me see here. Yes, here we go. So now, don't put me in a real one.
Hold it with this hand. Hold it with this hand right here. Because what I'm going to do is do this.
Right.
I'm going to cross you up, and I'm going to have you right here. You see that?
You got it. And so I'm going to say sound, speed, rolling in action, and we're going to do it. So this is the final fight scene from Roadhouse. Sound, speed, rolling, action.
I used to do guys like you in prison.
Marshall Teague, his lovely wife, thank you so much. This has been beyond an honor. I'm sure it's good. I trust. I love it. It's perfect. Inappropriate Earl, SoundCloud and iTunes. This will be out Monday morning as soon as I edit out one part of the beginning. And Marshall, I can't thank you enough. This
It's an absolute pleasure.
Every comic in LA will be listening to this, and all their friends. And you.
Well, I can say this. I will say this to all the comics out there. Keep bringing the joy and a laugh and a smile to the nation, because we need it.
It's the worst time in the world right now with this political climate of it's like the two, we won't mention names, but the two people running for office, it's like listening to YouTube comments.
Well, just keep bringing joy, and that's what you do. So that's what I would say to you. You asked me for my line. My request of you is keep bringing joy into the world.
And anytime you guys want to come to the Comedy Store, it'd be an honor to have you.
We'd love it. Actually, while we're, you just let us know when you're going to be there.
I will. So, guys, this has been maybe my favorite episode ever. And it'll be out Monday, minus the beginning, because I'm a man of my word.